Whether it's once a year, once a week, once a month, once a quarter, seasonally, we all experience menu changes. And I remember some really ugly ones and I remember some really great ones. Launching a new menu shouldn't feel like you're putting out fires left and right. But without the right process, that's exactly what ends up happening. Here's how to avoid that chaos. In this video, I'm going to break down the essential components that I believe are critical to successfully launching a menu. I'll walk you through my approach, sharing how to lead with confidence, organize your process, nurture your team's creativity, and execute a seamless culinary vision. In the video ahead, I'll show you how to engage your team, delegate efficiently, and thrive in your role as the executive chef using a tool that I call the Menu Launch Calculator. Stay with me to learn how to leverage your work into a process that sets you up for long-term, consistent, repeatable success. And while we're on that subject, I've implemented this exact process with many of my clients, but specifically for executive chef Sean Berry, so that he had a clear framework to roll out new menus in each of his outlets with the goal of improving new menu launches. And once implemented, he was able to avoid the last-minute overreactions, the frustrated yelling, and deliver fully developed concepts at a quality beyond what was expected in an environment and with a team that was really unsure of how he was going to work. In doing so, he built rapport and trust with his team and continues to do so each menu cycle, as opposed to everyone dreading the next menu launch. If you've been searching for a way to organize all of your experience and develop the processes you know will immediately improve your operation, as well as gain plug-and-play access to proven blueprints that streamline the workflow and improves everyone's quality of life, then I can help. This is exactly what I do with chefs like you every day, guiding them to lead with confidence and clarity in their kitchens while packaging their expertise and implementing efficient and effective solutions. Schedule a call with me so I can show you how I support chefs like you. Let's start the discussion about launching a menu with a conversation about routines. To me, what makes the biggest difference in an executive chef's life is the ability to make a routine out of the things that we do on a regular basis. I was having a conversation recently with one of my mentors and we were talking about routines, and if you see a successful man, I can almost promise you that there's some routine behind the work that he does. And I'm sure this applies to women as well, but I definitely know that the mentors that I've worked with and the people who've achieved the most have always had some routine that allows them to make steps in a much easier fashion. And so I want to share with you my menu launch routine because I want to have a structure and a process. And since you're here with me, I'm assuming that you're looking for that same thing. So let's talk about the structure and the process that I go about when I start launching a menu. To me, a routine is basically a list of steps that if you undertake help you land at a particular result. And my goal is always to have a smooth transition from one menu to the next, where my team knows what they're supposed to do and I can make tweaks, but I don't need to cook all of the dishes on that particular time. I want to make sure that everybody's aligned in the vision that we're executing. And those to me are success standards. And so that guides my desire to have the information at the level that I need it. Now, this is what I call my menu launch calculator. The only reason I call it a menu launch calculator is because it's an Excel sheet with formulas in the cells, so I don't have to think about the scheduling that goes in. But let's not spend too much time there, and let's simplify this so we can talk about it in a way that actually makes it easier. First things first, we need to talk about the steps that we need to undertake in order to launch a menu. And it's taken me, the majority of my career to get these steps down on paper, and I also have the pleasure of being able to talk about these steps with my clients. It may seem like a fairly significant list of things to do for a menu change, but there are a lot of little tasks and little things that need to take place, that need to be delegated, that need to be shared while you're going through that process. And for me, I just want to document that stuff. So my first menu calculator started off with probably 6 or 8 items. It's a great place to start. But then as you document and as you continue to evolve, inevitably you find things you missed or you think about things that you could make better, just continue to add them into my checklist, which then I turn my checklists into calculators. Like, this is kind of an approach that I take. It's the way that my brain works to help me organize information in such a way and also reflect, find a deadline for it, and automatically schedule it, because there's a lot of things that can be scheduled in advance. So, you're going to have to scale this calculator depending on how often you're changing a menu in order to use it, but I'm pretty sure that the majority of these steps are going to apply to you. So let's just go really quickly through that list. I like to start with a chef's meeting so that we can talk about what's coming up, when it's coming, if I need input from anybody else. That's where it starts, right? We determine a date. where the menu is going to launch. Then we have a quick brainstorming session. I may sit in my office with my executive sous chef or with an assistant or with a couple of cooks, whoever's going to be involved, and do some brainstorming. I may also assign other people an opportunity to do that, but brainstorming usually takes place. Move these around as you need. For me, that's the next thing that takes place, at which point I'll draft a menu. I like to draft a menu and then start doing research and development if there's anything that I want to incorporate that's new. Sometimes I want to take the greatest hits of last year and incorporate them into the next menu for the season, and I can very easily do that. But I want to make sure that I'm tweaking or touching up or looking at cost and doing that research and that development because I want to continue growing as well. If I don't have the time for research and development, then I'm okay with taking a dish that I've done in the past and plugging that in, knowing that it was a good hit, knowing that it was a successful dish. And now I know that I have the other information that I'm going to need, like recipes or prep lists from the previous time that I ran this dish, to move forward. Then I like to do a tasting. And that may happen in small chunks or like 2 or 3 dishes at a time. Maybe it's a couple dishes a week, or maybe it's a chunk of the menu, half the menu, the full menu, whatever it is, but there's a first tasting that's going to take place. And I like to have a feedback session there so that I can make little adjustments. Very often, if you're watching my videos, I talk about micro failures and micro successes. So instead of taking and delegating out an entire menu, I like to break it down into smaller pieces, such as research and develop for an entree, brainstorm 2 salads. Again, an opportunity for micro success and micro failure, as opposed to the overwhelm that can happen to some people with saying, write a whole menu. Chunk it down. And obviously, as people get better at it, then you can give them the garde manger section. Then you can give them the hot app section or the side section. You can break that stuff up, but before you get there, I think it starts one dish at a time. So then after we do the first tasting, get feedback, make some adjustments, run them as specials. You can do those steps together, but I also want to make sure that all of the dishes get run as specials, because from there, I can get plate costs, I can get tasting notes, and I can start to develop that syllabus for what those dishes are going to look like in the final, in that final round. And you can see on my list that that's kind of already where we're going with this. Getting plate costs in place, making sure that the front of the house has an opportunity to taste the dishes, provide feedback, give thought, understand what's coming, and then develop that syllabus. Your syllabus may look very different from mine, but to me, at the very least, it's including allergens, it's including silverware, it's including the basically the big broad stroke stuff that we need to be talking about so that everybody's on the same page. Allergens specifically. From there, right, we start focusing on a second tasting if there's a revision that's needed or if there's some dishes that need to go back to the drawing board. Then delegate out point of sales. Some chefs do it. I have done it. I don't love to do it. And I would much rather my front of the house managers and teams do that. But I also want to have that as a conversation so we can talk about keywords, we can talk about modifiers, and we can have that discussion. Sometimes that's a separate conversation. Sometimes that just comes as a general meeting in an office, or maybe it needs to be a formal team meeting and a menu review. From there, then I finalize recipes, update mise en place sheets, make any final adjustments that I need to, get pictures of the finished plates, station setups, mise en place, take the time to finalize my syllabus or my menu guide, get my order guides finalized and make sure that my specs are updated there, then have another team meeting and a game plan for the final launch of this, review the POS system, make sure that that's done, have a final printing of the tickets, and sometimes that needs to happen just before the launch or the day of the launch, which is fine, as long as there's an early meeting, there's a lot less mistakes on that one date. You may do that. I just like to have it on a list so that I'm reminded to do that because life gets out of control at times. Then final menu review and a launch. And then from there, after the launch, I want to make sure that I'm taking the time to get good pictures after the team's kind of worked into those dishes, get it to the marketing department, get it to whoever's going to put that out in media. I want to recap the launch with my team in the kitchen, with my sous chefs. I want to recap the menu launch with the front of the house and figure out what worked, what didn't work, what do we need to stop doing, and what should we do for the next time, and get that right off the bat. And then if I have an ownership tasting or a board tasting, those things all come about, and I think it's a good thing to have those things on the schedule. You may have additions, and if you have any additions to this, I'd love to hear about them in the comments below. But for me, that's my list, right? Covers most everything. We're going to remove this shadow over the top of it, and I'm going to talk about the calculator part to make this work. All right, so let's pick a menu launch date. Now, for the sake of the menu launch, you may have this determined, you may have it in your calendar, you may have it decided. We're going to go with November 1st. late fall, early winter menu. And then based on the size of your operation, figure out how far in advance of a menu launch we actually need to be talking about these things. If you've never done this before, have a list, go through the process, and kind of document your process as you go. Like most things, these lists evolve as you do them, but it always starts off with documenting. So if you've never done this before, pick the things that seem like the most necessary steps to you, start there, get them down on a pad, and then go ahead and go through your process. And I would say start to map them out. So for me, where I'm at now, again, I've been working on this for 28 years. It's taken me quite some time, and I had no idea about even organizing this until about, 15 years ago, at which point I started taking this really seriously and really kind of hammering in on this stuff. So now I like to have a chef's meeting at least a month in advance of a menu launch. If you're doing weekly menu launches, well, maybe it's a shorter, smaller meeting with much less time, and some of these things end up getting grouped together. But I still believe that the great majority of these things do happen, they do take place. You are still going to do R&D, you are still going to cost things. And if you don't, great, cool, scratch that line and move on. But this is what I find kind of works from a flow standpoint. If you figure out that some of these steps need to go in different places, then I would tell you to just kind of reevaluate where they are in this list. So take what you need from the list and then, juggle it around. And then the last part is putting formulas into the cells and making it super easy to just calculate and populate the calendar. And in order to do that, we just do a quick little math equation where we take the cell that we want to go into. Maybe you're great with Excel, maybe you're not. We're going to enter a simple formula into that cell, and we want to utilize this main date as kind of like the work backwards date from. To lock that cell, we're going to use a little trick with the dollar signs. See, $2. That locks that cell. And that way, when we drag that all the way down, what it's going to do is it's going to remember that cell at the top and not move all the way down along the bottom, right? And if you look here, our double check is on launch date. It's got our launch date set up at the top. And then you can adjust these dates as necessary. Now, is it necessary to have this stuff? No, it's not. But for me, I want to be able to make my life easier and take this into a routine and make my next menu change have a process. I talk about documenting quite a bit, and the whole point behind that is to make my life and everybody else's life easier. Now, the next time a menu change comes up, if I'm not there, or if something happens, or if I need to hand off some of the pieces, I know the little pieces that need to get handed off, and so does everybody else. Right? It's just a way to document this sheet. It's not going to start off this way. It's going to take some time to get there. I'll definitely talk more about routines because I think routines are truly the core of what it is that we do and how we do it and how we can be successful in doing it. And that's why I like to create routines out of the things that happen regularly, because I believe that running a culinary team shouldn't feel like you're putting out fires left and right constantly. But without the right processes, it's exactly what ends up happening. If you're ready to take the next step in your culinary career and thrive as an executive chef who's not always just putting out fires, and at the same time gain access to a proven process, resources, and guidance from a master chef who has been there, I'm here to help. This is exactly what I do with chefs like you every single day. Book a call now by clicking the link below, and let me show you how we can work through those processes together. But this is just the way that I go about launching my menus behind the scenes. Food is very important to me, but it's all the admin stuff that I think is difficult to juggle and to work out. And I don't like to have to make decisions all the time and think about things that can kind of be solidified. When we go back to the sheet, 35 days in advance of a menu launch is about enough time to have that initial meeting and then start brainstorming dishes. If you need more time, you can adjust. If you need less time, you can adjust. But that's what works for me, and that's the way that I like. And that allows me the time to do all of those other steps and delegate accordingly. Now I can plug those dates easily into my calendar. I can put them into my phone. I can delegate them out. I can send emails. I can send invites. I don't love being in the office, but I want to be super efficient about that. And then when an Excel sheet can calculate all those dates for me, man, that just makes it so much easier. That way, I'm not always thinking and scheduling and wasting my time trying to figure that stuff out. Because all those little things, those little actions are what lead to a great menu change. As I go, I may find that I'm missing something, or I may find that it's too much, or I may find that it's a waste, or some things are automatically done. As the executive chef, though, I still want to know what the other players in my operation, what their moves are, what they're doing, when they're doing them by, and I can keep deadlines in place so that I can manage whether things are going to get done successfully or not. So there you have it, a step-by-step approach to launching a menu using a structured, repeatable routine. By documenting the process and breaking it down into manageable tasks, you can ensure a smooth and successful transition from one menu to the next. Remember, it's not about reinventing the wheel every time, but refining what needs to be done to make your life easier and your team more effective. That's what it means to thrive. A well-planned menu launch isn't just about the food, it's about managing the admin and spreading the workload so that everything flows smoothly, even when you can't be there. Use this method if you want to control your process and reduce the stress around your next menu change. And if you found this useful, like and subscribe, and then share it with a chef who could use a nudge to make their life a little easier. Until next time, keep looking for the opportunities to improve your kitchen and your culinary team and your leadership beyond the food.